Hi guys, I've got a really cool producer to talk to you about. This is Louis Billard. So he is an up and coming producer over in Burgundy. He actually is a 5th generation winemaker. He's worked for some amazing producers, including DRC. He's also traveled all the way over to Australia and worked with By Farr, which is the winery that won Winery of the Year for 2025 by The Real Review. And as we all know DRC, or I'm sure you know DRC, that needs no introduction. It's one of the best wines in the world, certainly in Burgundy, and it's from the village or appellation of Vosne-Romanée, which is where this is from. So pretty much one of the most expensive Pinots in the world. And Louis Billard worked for DRC. His Vosne-Romanée and his Volnay are actually aged in ex-DRC barrels, which is very, very cool. DRC is thousands and thousands of dollars. These are all around $250. Exceptional value for money. And what's even more exceptional is his 2022 release is actually the first under his own label. And it's just sensational. I am so excited to talk you through these wines. Unfortunately, I have actually already finished the Vosne-Romanée. I've done another video that's on Instagram if you want to learn more about that, but I will just talk you briefly through Vosne-Romanée as a region. So obviously, as I mentioned before, it's home to one of the most expensive Pinots in the world. It has a beautiful balance of flavor. And I want to give you a direct comparison to the Volnay. So, which is also, and same with Meursault, they're two incredible, all three are incredible appellations. We've got 2 Pinots, 1 Chardonnay, pretty much what Burgundy is known for, right? So the Vosne-Romanée is so fantastic as an appellation because you get a beautiful balance of the bouquet, so all of the fruit and the flavor profile that you're getting, that's all the aromatics. So we're thinking the fruit, the floral, just everything that's very aromatic, but it also has that balance of structure. So you've got those tannins, that backbone that gives it depth, complexity, all of those things that I absolutely love about a Pinot. And by comparison, the Vosne-Romanée sort of sits at the sweet spot between Volnay and Pommard. So I don't have his Pommard here, but he does do another Pinot from Pommard. So if you ever get the opportunity to taste those 3 side by side, you will completely understand what I'm about to tell you next. So Volnay is known for that beautiful bouquet. Everything that you're getting in terms of fruit, floral, it's got such a beautiful nose on it that absolutely translates to the palate. I'm going to talk you through the Volnay. I have had a little bit of this one under Coravin. It is wow. I absolutely loved the Vosne-Romanée. But the floral is just, and the bouquet and the fruit of the Volnay is just exceptional. It has slightly less structure, so it's more known for that sort of the bouquet and the fruit rather than the backbone and the structure. Pommard, on the other side, is actually the reverse. So you don't get so much of that fruit floral that's coming through. You more focus on that tannin, that grip, that structure, that backbone. So Vosne-Romanée is really that sweet spot between the two, and it's exceptional. But I have to say the Volnay, even though it doesn't have quite as much backbone and structure, it's so pronounced in terms of fruit, floral, all of those sorts of things, more so than the Vosne-Romanée. I really like both for different reasons. I think the Vosne-Romanée is something that's so hard to go past because it is just known for being pretty much the best appellation you can get a Pinot from. I'm going to be bold and say probably worldwide, and I'm sure a lot of people will agree with me there. But the Volnay, if you love something that's got those aromatics, it's just wow. Really wow. It is so pronounced. Oh, you can even just smell it. I mean, you can't smell it, but I can smell it from here. It's just, oof. Generally when we're talking about something that's pronounced, if it's very kind of pronounced, you'll generally smell it like further away from your nose, but if it's not very pronounced, you'll need to like really get in there and smell it. So this one is really pronounced. The fact that I can smell it all the way down here, and there's so much fruit, so much fruit, so much floral. It's just, oh, it's just sensational. Yeah, it's just so much more forward. The Vosne-Romanée still had so much beautiful fruit, and if you've seen my Instagram video, it is such an exceptional wine. I think this has got to be my favorite Pinot. But the Volnay is just so interesting. And I had a pommade recently, and you really, side by side, all three, you just see the difference. It's really quite amazing. They're all beautiful wines in their own right. I probably enjoyed the Volnay a little bit more than the pommade. I haven't tried Louis Billard's pommade, but a different producer's pommade. But that was more because that producer was really heavy on the structure. Whereas the Volnay is actually stylistically a little bit similar to the Vosne-Romanée, although the difference between these two is you can see that stylistically they're similar, but wow, so different as a wine. Beautiful, beautiful wines. The fact that this is his first release under his own label is just mind-blowing. Yeah, and I think if you had the opportunity to try these wines, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's really impressive, really, really impressive. So this one, you're getting all of those beautiful fruits. You do have the violet, you've got the plum, you've got the cherry. Oh, it's just so nice. You've got that whole bunch fermentation that's coming through, even on the nose. It's got that acidity. You can smell that. Still has that tannin and structure to it. It's just a little bit more subtle, mainly because the fruit is just so much the focal point. But it's still like, if you probably saw that I was wiping my tongue above my, the gums above my two front teeth, like this. And that essentially helps you, while the wine is in your mouth, if you do that, it helps you actually feel those tannins. These have a little bit of grippiness to them. Really, really nice. You can tell, or I can tell, that it's more acidic than it is tannic. That's different with the Vosne-Romanée. You've got a beautiful balance of acidity and tannin. This one has more acidity than it has tannin, but still beautiful. It gives it that freshness. It really drives the fruit forward. Such an exceptional wine. I am so excited to try the Meursault. I actually haven't tried his Meursault before. So Meursault is a Chardonnay, so white wine, obviously. I've never been a pro at getting wax off. You can just drive a cork directly through, but when I'm using a Corrigan, I prefer not to. And I feel like whenever I try and do this, it's just so messy. I think wax looks fantastic. It gives wine a beautiful premium feel, probably not helped by the fact that this knife is so blunt. Haven't mastered yet how to get this off nicely. Once I figure that out, I'll do another video, or drop in the comments if you have any tips for me, aside from getting a new corkscrew. Anyway, I love these Riedel rags. I think they're fantastic for wiping down bottles. We will be onto the white in a minute. Okay, so we are on to the Meursault, which I am very, very excited about. Ooh. So Meursault for white wine is actually an appellation or a village that is really highly regarded for its body. So when we talk about body, we're essentially talking about really just how full the wine is, how it feels on the palate. And there are a lot of things that contribute to that fullness. That a lot of the time is to do with not only the terroir, so there's a lot of flavour that is pulled up by the roots. So we get in that flavour profile of the grape, we get a good reflection of the grape itself, but all of the sort of climactic conditions and the whole environment that that grape is grown in, which is called the terroir. So all of those factors contribute to the body of the wine, but also so do the decisions that winemakers make. So things that add to that body is if it went through malolactic fermentation, which is essentially where once the fermentation has happened, if we increase the temperature a little bit, we can bring on malolactic fermentation, which isn't a traditional fermentation like converting sugar and yeast to make alcohol. It's actually more a conversion. So we're essentially converting, when it gets warm enough, there's lactic bacteria that basically breaks down the malic acid. This is tart acid that we find in apples. So it breaks that down and converts it into lactic acid, which is what we find in milk, which brings out these beautiful sort of buttery flavors. So that helps to also soften the acidity a little bit. So that's sort of one of the things that can help to sort of round out the palate and give more body. One of the other things is also aging in oak. So when we're aging in sort of a steel vat where we don't have oxygen contact or limited oxygen contact, we call it a reductive style, so lack of oxygen. And that essentially preserves the varietal and fruit characteristics, but it can also, it's like how we make Riesling as an example. So it makes that wine very sort of fruit forward, very sharp, and it doesn't always have the sort of body that we would have with, say, a Chardonnay that's oak or oak to age, where we've got that interaction with oxygen. So we call it an oxidative style. And that essentially changes that flavor profile and it helps to round out that complexity, which adds to the body. And when we sort of think about some of the other decisions that winemakers make when they're aging in oak, a lot of the time they will age on lees. So essentially what happens is when we're converting sugar and yeast into alcohol, that yeast dies through that process and it becomes what we call lees, which is essentially dead yeast. And there are two different types of lees. So you've got your gross lees, which is heavy sort of sediment that sinks to the bottom. And you've got your fine lees, which are basically like little particles that float around in the wine and actually integrate some of their flavor into the wine. So it's a process called yeast autolysis. So there's some of the things that can round out that palate. When we have that sort of lees contact or lees aging, it essentially means that we're adding more biscuity sort of flavors and toasty notes to that wine, which help to sort of build and round out that palate. And that's what we mean by body. So Meursault is known for its body. Oh, so nice to smell. Beautiful citrus, stone fruits. Oh. A little bit of biscuity sort of note, a little bit of butter. I'm going to say off the smell, it's still got a lot of acidity, but let's taste it. Ooh, wow. There's so much going on the palate. That is beautiful. I'm just catching my words at the moment because that is, wow, exceptional. Definitely a little bit of butter in there. Very nice balance of acidity. Very nice balance of acidity. You've still got that crispness. There's just that little bit of butter, little bit of creaminess. Oh, the stone fruits, the citrus. It does have that little bit of like biscuity note. I almost want to go as far as like a brioche, that butter and toast. Beautiful, beautiful wine. Oh, there's a little bit of minerality. It's quite common in Burgundy. So when I was saying that we create more body from, or we have more body when we have that full expression of the terroir, so that flavor profile, when we're kind of looking at the flavor profile of a grape and that terroir, we're not just talking about the grape itself and those flavors, we're also talking about the soil and the nutrients that it pulls up that help to influence and round out that flavor profile within the actual grape. And that really comes across in the wine. So you do have a little bit of that minerality, beautifully balanced, beautifully balanced. Especially that balance between acidity and creaminess. That's probably one of the hardest things to get right. And that little bit of toast, it's so nicely balanced. All of those stone fruits. I want to even say there's a slight, maybe like a slight sort of kiwi fruit type flavor to it. Really exceptional. Beautiful, beautiful wines. I can't say that enough. I can't speak highly enough of this producer. Fifth generation winemaker, has worked for DRC, has worked for By Farr here in Australia. This is the first release, the 2022 vintage is the first release under his own label. Absolutely exceptional. You've got 600 bottles each of the Volnay, which is a 1er Cru, so we're at the second top of the hierarchy. We've got the Vosne-Romanée, which although it's not part of a Grand Cru or 1er Cru, it's still named as the village, which means we're still up in the hierarchy, so we're not a regional level wine. Both of those are 600 bottles. We've got 1,200 bottles. Yeah, 1,200 bottles for the Meursault. Really small production, really high quality. This is definitely one to watch. He has an entire range. This is just a small glimpse of it. Absolutely incredible producer. Such great value for money. Such great value. If I had to predict anything, and I think anyone who's tried his wines would absolutely agree, this is a wine that I do not think is going to stay this well priced for too long. His reputation is growing. The quality is just exceptional. And you can see that just reflected in the fact that he's able to have the village. So these are really tightly controlled. So the labeling convention and the laws around French wine, particularly as well his 1er Cru, you have to meet certain requirements to be labeled in this way. So it's not just regional level. Fantastic, fantastic wines. Cheers to that.